When you need an attorney, experience matters.
Past success matters.
Attention to detail matters.
Prince Glover Hayes is celebrating 40 years.
40 years as a civil litigation firm.
And delivers over 100 years.
Over 100 years of combined experience.
We've been able to obtain some of the largest jury verdicts and settlements in the state of Alabama for our clients.
We will fight.
We will fight.
We will fight to make sure our clients
get the justice they deserve.
Here at Prince Glover Hayes, we counsel.
We advocate.
We litigate.
And we are devoted to helping you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mike Royer along with Dena Prince. We welcome you to People's Law School, brought to you by Prince Glover Hayes here in Tuscaloosa. On this program, we deal with issues that are important to you and to your family. And tonight's topic, Dena Prince will be talking about Tuscaloosa zoning ordinance and how they might affect you and your property. Our hostess for the program is Dena Prince. Dena.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, and thank all of you for being here tonight. I am especially honored to be here, and I certainly hope my talk will prove to be informative and enjoyable. A little background about me. I'm from a wonderful small town south of here, Greensboro, Alabama, in Hale County. I came to the university in 1973, graduated in 1977, and went on to law school here, graduating in 1980. After being in private practice for several years, I went to work for the city of Tuscaloosa as an assistant city attorney. While there, one of my responsibilities was attending the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and the Zoning Board of Adjustment meetings every month. I retired from the city when my second child was born in November of 1990. Thereafter, Mayor Al DuPont asked me to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then a few years ago, Mayor Walt Maddox asked me to serve again. And it's a volunteer experience that I thoroughly enjoy. Because I have experience with the Zoning Board of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I will spend the majority of my talk talking to you about the workings and the procedures around this organization. As I began to prepare for my talk, I realized that the subject matter that could be covered is voluminous. There is absolutely no way that I could give you even an overview of the city's zoning ordinance in a 30-minute lecture. So I decided to concentrate tonight on restrictions and regulations dealing mainly with residential property, because I'm sure most of you either own or rent a residence here in town. To illustrate how the Planning Commission operates, I have also chosen to talk about a particular case that we heard on September the 17th of this year. I will talk about the procedure the Commission employs and hopefully give you a sense of how we reach our decisions regarding a rezoning request. I'll give you a little background first. The Code of Alabama authorizes and empowers municipalities to make, adopt, amend, etc., a municipal plan, and to create by ordinance a planning commission with powers and duties that the state statute sets out. In 1972, the city of Tuscaloosa passed what is known as the Zoning Ordinance of Tuscaloosa. The purpose of the ordinance is to promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the inhabitants of Tuscaloosa by lessening congestion in the streets, providing safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, providing adequate light and air, preventing the overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, facilitating the adequate provisions of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, and other public requirements, conserving the value of buildings, and encouraging the most appropriate use of land. But prior to the passage of this ordinance, the City of Tuscaloosa Planning and Zoning Commission had already been formed in 1946 to guide and accomplish a comprehensive and coordinated development of the city. Some of the Planning Commission's duties include approving new subdivisions and recommending changes to the zoning ordinance to the City Council. These changes include rezoning of property within the city and also recommending amendments to the text of the zoning ordinance. Mike, I understand you have a question for us.
Dena, this one deals with something that I know the city has dealt with recently, and we've done news stories about it, and that's short-term renting, game weekend renting. It's something everyone has been taking a look at lately. What's the status of that as far as you know currently, and what are the rules and regulations in the city of Tuscaloosa?
Well, we're looking at that yet again at the October meeting of the Commission. Right now, short-term rentals are allowed in two areas of the city, Lake Tuscaloosa, and then I'll call it mainly the historic districts downtown, close to the university, property that is close to the university. We are going to consider whether to make that ordinance citywide. So right now, I would say that it's in a state of flux. It's quite a situation. So,
let's leave it at that. What do you say?
Okay.
Dena, thank you.
Thank you. In matters pertaining to subdivision regulations, the regulations that control the subdivision of land, in the approval of subdivisions within the city and its planning jurisdiction, and planned unit developments outside the city limits, the Planning Commission is the final authority. In matters pertaining to original zonings, rezonings, planned unit developments within the city, street vacations, downtown riverfront overlay district applications, and riverfront development district applications, the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the City Council. The Planning Commission consists of 9 members appointed by the mayor to serve 6-year terms. The commission members are Robert Reynolds, our chairman, Bill Wright, who is our vice chair, Vince Dooley, Tim Harrison, Philip Maxwell, Councilwoman Phyllis Odom, Stephen Rumsey, Mike Wright, and myself. Pursuant to the ordinance, the city is divided into districts. This color-coded map gives you an idea of the different zoning classifications in this particular area of the city. And I think probably just about every kind of zoning district, maybe not the industrial districts, are shown on that color-coded map. The districts are residential districts, business districts, industrial districts, mixed-use districts, institutional districts, and riverfront development districts. But as I mentioned before, we're going to talk mainly about how the zoning ordinance deals with residential districts. I understand we have yet another question, Mike.
Dena, this one deals with remodeling or modifications to your home. Are the rules for basic modifications different throughout the city from the historic district of the city? How does that vary?
Well, if your home is located within a historic district, something that's been designated as an historic district, then you have to go before the Historical Society to present your application. What are you going to be modifying? Are you just going to be painting? Are you going to add on a room, get a new roof? And you have to present your plans to them, and then they have to approve those plans. That would be in addition to any requirement that the city would have. I think where that would come into effect as far as the city is concerned is if you had a piece of property that was what we call a prior non-conforming use. In other words, you were using your property for one particular use, and then it was rezoned, something that was more restrictive. Then that's called a prior non-conforming use, and you can keep using it, but if you make improvements up to, I think it is 50% of the value, then you're not allowed to carry that on. You would have to discontinue that prior non-conforming use. The three most restrictive residential districts are R1, which is the most restrictive, R2, and R3. The main differences between these three single-family residence districts deal with minimum lot area, minimum setback lines, and minimum yard requirements. For instance, in an R1 zone, the minimum lot area is 12,000 square feet. In other words, if you're in a subdivision and that subdivision is zoned R1, there can be no lot in that subdivision that is less than 12,000 square feet in area. In R2, the minimum is 9, and in R3, 7,500. The minimum width at the building line in an R1 is 85 feet. That means your lot has to be at least 85 feet wide at your building line. In R2, 75, and in R3, 65. Your front yard has to have a depth in R1 of 35 feet, in R2, 30, and in R3, 25. We also have minimum side lot requirements. In an R1, you have to have 2 side yards with an aggregate of 20 feet, and the least width of either yard has to be at least 10 feet. We also have requirements in R2 and R3, as you can see, but they are less restrictive. Your rear yard has to have a depth in R1 of 35 feet, and same in R2, and 30 in R3. So I'm trying to give you a sense of how regulations deal with residential property in these three single-family residential zones. The main reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to talk about a case that came before us in our September meeting, and the property was currently zoned at R1, which is the most restrictive use. So just going to, hopefully this will give you an idea of how the meetings go and what information we have from staff, from the petitioner who is petitioning to have the property rezoned, and from any other concerned citizen who may come to either support or offer opposition to the request. In this case, the owner of approximately 114 acres of vacant land requested that his property be rezoned from R1 to ML, which is light manufacturing. The owner was desirous of marketing the property for suitable interstate businesses, such as light industrial or manufacturing operations or other interstate compatible businesses due to its location adjacent to Interstate 2059. Here is an aerial map showing the location of the property. As you can see, it's located on the east side of University Boulevard East and north of Interstate 2059. The next map shows the current zoning of the subject property and those properties which are adjacent. The property to the north is zoned R1. Everything in yellow on the map is zoned R1. And then the other property that you can see that's still white is not in the city limits, so therefore it's not zoned. The property to the east is vacant and is not in the city limits. To the south, you see Interstate 2059. Farther south is vacant land that is zoned ML. To the west is vacant land not in the city limits. Farther west, west of University Boulevard, the property is outside the city limits, not zoned, but is currently being used as residential. The staff of the city's planning department gives us an analysis of the petition and the subject property. And let me just say right here that the city is so fortunate to have such a competent staff of planners, engineers, and attorneys who facilitate the presentation of the Commission's cases. They are very dedicated professionals and make our jobs as commissioners a whole lot easier. One of the first things the staff analyzes is whether the request conforms to any specific plan that has addressed the property before. In this case, the 2009 City of Tuscaloosa specific plan for District 6, and that's the district within which this property is located, did not address this particular property. The property was also not identified in the 2007 specific plan for the Greater Alberta community because the eastern boundary did not extend that far out. This property was annexed into the city in 1990. The zoning ordinance provides that any area annexed to the City of Tuscaloosa shall, without further action by the City Council of Tuscaloosa, be classified as an R1 residence district unless and until rezoned by action of said council. So, when this property came into the city, it came in as R1, and no attempts had been made to rezone the property until this petition. After the staff member gives the Commission information regarding the rezoning request, the petitioner gets to present his case. In this instance, the petitioner was represented by his engineer, which is really not unusual. He told the Commission that the owner wanted the ability to put the land to light manufacturing, but had no concrete plan to present. Thereafter, several neighboring property owners voiced objections to this request, citing, among other things, the fact that they had come into the city in 1990 for the protection afforded by the city's zoning ordinance. Other concern included not knowing exactly what the plans were for the property, if in fact it was rezoned, and there were also concerns about increased traffic and what environmental impact there might be to Hurricane Creek and Bee Branch Creek. After closing public discussion, the Commission members get to voice some of our opinions and concerns before voting. I thought it would be interesting for you to hear some of our comments and how the vote turned out. So we're going to see a little bit of that video now.
I'll just say I'll be interested to see what the housing survey looks like in the comprehensive plan. One thing that, you know, I don't think we've reached a critical point, but I do worry sometimes about where will homes and neighborhoods be in our city. That was one of the reasons I voted against the property that's going to be the assisted living off of Rice Mine Road, because I know that that's an area where there is vacant land, where there could be neighborhoods developed. Ms. Drennan makes a good point about development to the east, when there could be more and more families who have split households with one spouse working in Tuscaloosa and the other spouse needing to get quickly on the interstate to get to Birmingham. So I look forward to seeing that survey and noting where the potential development could be and what we sort of have to save for residential purposes. I mean, I know this is a sort of a peculiar piece of property, but it really bothers me to rezone a piece of property this big, smack dab up against an R1, the most restrictive zone we have, and then we're opening up, what is it, 114 acres?
114.
That could be light manufacturing. I compliment the developer for trying to figure out another zone that might not have such undesirous uses as a highway-related business would, but there's still a lot of uses that could go in light manufacturing that I know if I lived there, I wouldn't want it to be in my backyard.
I struggle with this. I would like to see a plan. I would like to see what's going on. I'd like to know what's going on. But the highest and best use for this property at an interstate for Tuscaloosa, unfortunately, is something in a commercial or an ML district. Now, I understand the neighbors. They want tranquility, they want peace and quiet, and we want protection for our waters. But at some point in time, over the lifespan of this community, we keep growing, something's going to happen there. And I don't know, if you have 200 acres out there, 120 acres out there, you can put 200 family dwellings at a minimum under R1, correct, Ashley? Which promotes additional traffic and things that you're trying to prevent. So it's trying to come up with the right solution here is tough.
My concern is this the right time? Could we be presented with a large industrial development plat that delineated an area that was going to be for an ML use and reserve the other area, for example, a buffer? I just think that's a possibility. But again, we're just simply making a recommendation to the City Council. Anyone else have any comments? All right, well then the chair will entertain a motion to approve Z1618. Do I have a motion? Again, it's not an indication how you may or not vote, but we have to make a vote. I have a motion. To have a second.
Second.
I have a motion second, beginning Mr. Maxwell.
Yes.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
No. No. That will go on to the City Council with a negative recommendation.
As you can see from that clip, there are sometimes conflicting factors that have to be weighed before we make a decision on a zoning request. As you heard, Commissioner Harrison voted yes to recommend rezoning due to the location of the property being so close to the interstate. We do have to consider the highest and best use, and also that a property owner has certain rights and should be able to use his property to his best advantage, provided that it does not conflict with our zoning ordinance. Commissioner Reynolds' chief hesitation dealt with not knowing exactly what the owner was how he was going to develop the property if in fact it was rezoned light manufacturing. There are many different kinds of manufacturing businesses allowed in the ML zone, some less desirous than others. And we have to remember that once we rezone a particular piece of property, then that property can be used for any purpose allowed within that zone. In other words, if the current owner proposed to use the property for warehousing and storage, which was one of the possible uses disclosed to us, but then he sold the property to someone else, that new owner could use the property for any use allowed within the ML zone, including manufacturing, assembling, and fabricating operations, a brewery, and self-service storage facility. I was concerned because it was such a large tract of land, and I think we should be mindful of future residential needs of our city. One thing that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit, you might have heard Commissioner Reynolds talk about a plat being brought to us. When someone brings a plat to us, we do have the authority to require certain conditions be met. One of them is if you have a subdivision that is going to be used for, in this case, light manufacturing purposes, and there is a residential neighborhood right next door, we can require up to a 50-foot buffer to sort of separate those uses so that the manufacturing uses aren't just right up against a residential neighborhood. I hope you got a little information on sometimes how tough it is for us to sort of weigh all of these factors and try to look out for the best interest of the city. And sometimes, as in this case, I think you noticed a few commissioners hesitating on their vote because it was a lot of us struggled with that. In closing, I would like to encourage all of you to become familiar with the work going on right now by a consulting firm, which will culminate in a new comprehensive plan for the city of Tuscaloosa. This is so important. You know, our city has changed drastically in the last several years. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. And we have got to probably do a lot of amending of our zoning ordinance to catch up and to prepare for any changes that might come in the future. So the city is encouraging community involvement, and they have launched what they're calling Framework, which is, according to their website, a process for everyone who cares about our community to share ideas and create a plan to guide the city's growth for years to come. And I'm quoting from their website now that this once-in-a-generation effort will proactively address topics that are important to the community, including neighborhoods and housing, lakes, our economic prosperity, transportation, the environment, and a lot more. So all opinions matter, and all participants' voices will be heard. The website is being displayed on the screen, and I encourage you all to visit that site and find out how you can become more involved in this process and just to know what's going on. Again, thank you all for coming. I've enjoyed being with you tonight.
Dena Prince, thank you very much for taking a topic that can affect all of us at some point in our lives, and I'm glad there's folks like you that understand it and can help us understand it a bit better. Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of People's Law School and hope you'll join us next time. The program brought to you by Prince Glover Hayes here in Tuscaloosa. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
When you need an attorney, experience matters.
Past success matters.
Attention to detail matters.
Prince Glover Hayes is celebrating 40 years.
40 years as a civil litigation firm.
And delivers over 100 years.
Over 100 years of combined experience.
We've been able to obtain some of the largest jury verdicts and settlements in the state of Alabama for our clients.
We will fight.
We will fight.
We will fight to make sure our clients
get the justice they deserve.
Here at Prince Glover Hayes, we counsel.
We advocate.
we litigate,
and we are devoted to helping you.
People's Law School is brought to you by Prince Glover Hayes as a community outreach class offered by the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute.